Let's bring our next storyteller, May Flores.
I'm a little bit taller than you, Nestor. This is from Nestor. He gave all of us a giant Guatemalan worry doll instead of those little ones that you put under your pillow. It helps tonight. So, this is only the second time that I'm actually telling this story. So, the first time was the night I actually met Nestor, thanks to Clarence over here who came to support me. My story is about my mother, my sister, and I. My mother is a single parent. And the woman named Jacqueline Mason who made magic happen for us here in the US. We were in the middle of what was called the EDSA revolution. I think some of you will remember Marcos and Imelda and her millions of shoes. That's what everybody remembers about her. But what everybody doesn't know is that, is this too low? What everybody doesn't know is that there was a revolution, there was martial law, everything shut down. And at the time, I was only in third grade, and my little sister was in kindergarten. And we didn't know what was happening. We just know that there were riots and bombs in the middle of the night, and what was political to a kid, all you knew was fear. And my mom said, we got to get out of here. We have to figure some way to get out of this country. Now, a single mom, Filipino woman in the Philippines at that time is unheard of. But she said, I'm going to go to the immigration office. I'm an educated woman. We're going to get out of here. They said there were way too many families trying to flee the country, and they wanted to make sure that everybody was going to come back eventually. So they said, you can go, but you cannot bring your children. And you have 24 hours to go. So make the best of it. So my mom didn't have enough time to prepare her two girls about what was to come, but she said, I will make it work. Give me a month or two, I'll figure out a way to get my daughters in the US somehow. I'm an educated woman. She didn't understand that this is not an easy task, even especially during a revolution that we were experiencing there. They were limiting everything. And so my mom came home with treats. I remember 6 a.m. And I remember something different about her. She was overly loving, had private time with me and my sister separately. I remember her bags packed and she said, I'm going on a work trip, but I'll be right back. You will stay with your cousins and I will be back to pick you up and we'll go somewhere together. Didn't think anything of it. I was concentrating on the treats. I was like, wow, my mom's never bought this many treats before. So instead of really understanding what was going on, so a kid, you just went with the flow. I remember my cousin picking up my mom. I remember seeing the luggage. I remember seeing our luggage and not understanding that we were also moving to my cousin's place. We were abandoning the home altogether and the things that we had in it. My mom packed. We took her to the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. And I remember my mom hugging me, but very quickly, not long, very short. And she couldn't look me in the eye. And I remember her pushing that car. I'm like, Mom, bye. Bye. And I remember asking, why isn't she looking? Why, Kuya Randy, why isn't she looking at me? Because she knew later on, as a teenager, she told me, if I knew that if I looked back, there is no way I would have gone. And so I remember that view, and I'll never forget it, even in my worst hours when I'm seeing partners or significant others come and go, loved ones, I always flash back to that memory of my mom walking away with luggage and not looking back. The impact of a mother separated from her children, I can't imagine what that feels like. But for a child, in her perspective, to see your mother and your only person being fatherless, walking away, is probably the hardest thing any child could experience. And so we lived with my cousin for about a year, a little over a year. We would call. It was so expensive to call overseas for my mom at the time, so we would talk to her once a month, maybe twice on a good month. What I didn't know was when my mom arrived here in Chicago to live with my godmother, an educated woman with a master's degree went to a nursing care facility and said, I will do whatever it takes. I will wash toilets. I will handle laundry. I just need somebody to sponsor me to help get my girls here, and I don't care how long it takes. Mind you, I'm not doing her any justice because she was a crying mess. And this woman who owned this business, her name is Jacqueline Mason, who literally didn't know what to do. She's like, stop crying. I'll get your girls here, whatever you want to do. Not understanding what that entailed, not understanding how long it would take, how grueling and how difficult it would be on both ends of immigration. So she ran the paperwork, immediately sponsored us. Literally the first month my mom was there. So compelled to hear about stories about the girls that she would one day meet, seeing photos of us, not knowing what we were going to be like. We could be rugrats, a pain in the ass. She didn't care. She's like, I somehow need to do this. And that says so much about this woman who eventually became like a mother to me, who helped pay for college, who eventually paid for me to get into the arts, to do extracurriculars, to live in an upper middle class community. But it was because of her. But at the time, she did not realize that she would make such an impact in two little girls' lives. She wrote letters to government. Even though the U.S. approved us to come in, the Philippines made it very hard for us to leave. They knew Nellie Flores. It became this name. They're like, who is this woman that keeps fighting for this random Filipina mom? What? There must be something special about this person because we're getting letters from government, U.S. government. There's something special about this. We cannot let her go. They made it so hard. My aunt, Tita J, who I would eventually call Jacqueline Mason, would literally do whatever she could. Do we need to pay off anybody? What do we need to do? The U.S. government was like, we're doing all we can. We've approved them. It's just a matter of them letting them go. And so in a desperate act, my aunt, Jacqueline Mason, Tita J, wrote a letter to the White House. And it was answered immediately by then Vice President George Bush. A personal letter saying that no mother should be separated from her children. In the case of war or strife, a mother and child should be together. And it made a promise that they would help as much as they can to get us here. My mom still has that letter. It's framed. It made her a forever Republican. God forbid, but she still loves Obama, no, but she will always be a forever Republican and will always love the Bush family because of that. But she did everything she could. The government did everything they could. And the most significant part, as if none of this is significant, was that we didn't realize, my sister and I, that wheels were turning already. Next thing we knew, we were meeting a lady. We were meeting her weekly. I'll call her Maria because of the privacy of the situation. And she had like 8 people in that room, and we had to pretend we were family. And didn't understand it at the time. We had different names, we were issued different names, and we were supposed to call each other. We're one big family. We practiced this over and over and over, not realizing the significance. We just thought it was a game. They made it feel like a game. It's like, oh, we're going to take a big trip. We're going to go to Tokyo Disney. We're going to take one big family trip, and then we're going to do layovers here in Canada, and then we're going to go to Chicago. And I'm like, Chicago, that's where my mom is. Not realizing the connection at the time, but knowing that, maybe this is what, but we were never allowed to call each other by our names. And this went on for a couple months or so until we got into the swing of things. But this woman was fantastic. She was regal. She had money. And money we, in a third world country, would have never imagined. She had a gigantic house, and this is what she did. And on the day that we left, We were set up in our outfits as if we were wealthy little kids. We had like Mickey Mouse sweatshirts, I'll remember, and we were dressed like really elite upper class family from the Philippines. And we did our trip. Immigration did not do anything in the Filipino border. Whatever she did was magic. We just kind of coasted through. I don't know what she did. If she paid off somebody, that was it. We get to Japan. They question us for hours. We missed our flight. We ended up staying there for a couple more days more than we had planned. And it was terrifying. I mean, they put us in different rooms. They asked who we were. And I remember thinking, like, what did we do wrong? And so we get through there somehow, get on a plane, and she held my sister and I and said, the next stop is Chicago. Now, when we get there, you're not to run. I don't care who you see. You're going to be walking calmly beside me, and you're going to listen to every word I say. I'm like, okay, Maria, all right. And then I remember slipping, calling my sister her real name, and she was like, shh. And she split us up on separate arms so we wouldn't call each other by our real names. And we arrived O'Hare Airport at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and they hold us in immigration for hours. But they didn't ask my sister and I to walk in. They asked Myrna in and Maria in. God, there we go. It slipped. Sorry, Myrna. And literally, she answers whatever questions they have. Next thing I know, it's empty. Early morning, Thanksgiving Day, 1987. And my sister and I, and this group of 8 that we were traveling with, our family, was coasting through baggage claim. And I see my mom from a distance. And I see Tita J, who I've only heard her voice, promising us that she was going to get us here. And I just couldn't hold all the emotion. Imagine a year of not seeing your mother. And hearing her voice and hearing the promises of America and hearing the promises of togetherness. And I see her, and I remember going, I will do anything right now to run to her and never let her go. So we coasted through baggage claim, getting closer to her, and we walked towards her. And she said, and Myrna goes, now you can go. Go. We didn't even care. My sister and I just bolted. I ran to my mom. My sister ran to Tita J, and it was like this a feeling of that I'll never be able to describe, of like everything being right, everything being complete, and everything that we worked hard for and the fear of a war that was happening was gone. All that mattered was Thanksgiving Day, my mom standing in an airport baggage claim and telling me that we were never going to be separated again. Then again, this story isn't unique if we really think about it. There are so many immigrants, so many Filipinos that have this kind of story of parents that leave and promise to send money back home or come back home and pick you up and sponsor. But I have to say, I have never felt more lucky to meet a woman like Jacqueline Mason, who allowed a hysterical immigrant lady in her office who was begging for any job at all. And she kept her promise and gave us the best Thanksgiving Day ever. And that was the day we arrived in America, was a Thanksgiving Day, and it snowed that day. And I remember rolling in the snow and realizing the life that we left behind and that we'd probably never be able to see again. And so that is it. That's my immigration story. And so thankful of Jacqueline Mason. So thankful of the individuals that helped us get here. And mind you, I never waste a moment to remember her. She has passed now for 7 years, but I've never wasted a day to forget the generosity of her spirit and her life that she gave to 2 Filipino little girls who she didn't even know yet. So thank you.